There they are, the brand new Apple AirPod Pro 3s. I've been wearing these for a few days now, ever since they were announced over in Cupertino. I got to attend the event and check things out in person, and I've put these through a variety of conditions, both there editing videos, sitting at coffee shops, and also flying back on a red-eye 6-hour flight back to Boston with the ANC turned on, and when I got back, going for a couple of different runs with them to see how it all works. So in this video today, I want to share my thoughts and opinions on the new AirPod Pro 3s, how they compare to the older AirPod Pro 2s, because I've used these extensively over the past year or so, and tell you why I think these are actually a pretty big upgrade. If you missed the Apple keynote event and learned all about these initially, there's a few things that make these AirPods special. They changed some of the acoustic dynamics, they improved the ANC and transparency mode, they gave it longer battery life with up to 8 hours on a single charge compared to 6 hours on the older model, and finally they added, for the first time ever on AirPods, heart rate sensors directly to the buds themselves. And we'll talk about that later in this video because I have done some testing with those and accuracy and stuff like that, but it's pretty interesting. But what's even more interesting about the AirPod Pro 3s compared to their older counterpart is that the price has not changed. These new AirPod Pro 3s are $249, which, yes, is expensive for a pair of earbuds or headphones, but it's the exact same price as the previous model, which is kind of refreshing in a landscape where prices seem to be creeping up and up with everything that comes out. They stayed the same here, which I do appreciate. Taking a closer look at these AirPods, these are the 3s here, and these are the 2s here. As you can see from the outside, the cases look nearly identical. Sitting them on the table here, you can see that the case of the 3s do look a little bit bigger, but in person, they're pretty much identical. The only thing that sets them apart when it comes to the case is if I flip them over, you can see that the older model here has a button on the back that's actually a pairing button if you wanted to reset them or pair them with a different phone, where the new model here does not have a pairing button at all. In fact, if you do want to pair them to another device, what you do is you open the lid here and you tap the LED a couple of times and you can see it's flashing now. Now, the reason they got rid of that button on the back of the case is because the case is now water resistant to an IP57 rating. That means it's more water resistant. Apple says you can take them out in a light rain, you can sweat heavily and not have to worry about the case getting damaged. Not only that, the AirPods themselves are also IP57 rated as well. That's something I do appreciate. I often go trail running or hiking and I'll throw the case in my backpack. And in the past with the AirPod Pro 2s, I always put them in a Ziploc bag just to be safe. I'll probably continue to do that, but it is some added peace of mind. Opening the case up reveals the buds themselves, and just like the case, the AirPods themselves look pretty much identical to the previous model. And if I put them side by side, so these are the 2s, these are the 3s, they're very hard to tell apart. However, the design has changed. So on the left is an AirPod Pro 2 and on the right is a Pro 3. Now, if I rotate them upwards, this is where you'll see the change. Where on the AirPod Pro 2s, they sort of fired towards the front of your head, where on the new Pro 3s, they actually fire directly towards your eardrum. They're more perpendicular to your eardrum, and that's supposed to make them sound better. Another change between the AirPod Pro 2 on the left and the 3 on the right is the airflow. So if you didn't know, speakers need air around them to be able to move around, and the more they can move, the more bass they can generate and the clearer sound you'll get overall. So Apple says that they've increased the airflow by changing out the venting on the outside of the AirPod. You can see a vent up top and on the back here. In the final design change when it comes to the hardware, it comes down to the ear tip itself. So on the previous model, they used like a thin, squishy rubber on the AirPod Pro 2s, where on the new Pro 3s, it's like a foam-filled rubber tip, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit more stiff now. And now when you buy a set of AirPod Pro 3s, you also get an additional set of ear tips in the box, where previously you got 4, now you get 5. Now when it comes to the fit of these AirPods, I've been using the medium ear tip. That works pretty well for me. And I gotta say, the new ear tip does seal much better. I gotta turn transparency mode or I'm not gonna be able to hear my own voice. But that better seal does a variety of things. It improves the audio quality, the better ANC and transparency mode, but most importantly, I'm a runner. I go running almost every day, and I have found that on the new Pro 3s, they feel much more secure. In fact, shake my head around and they don't fall out. Of course, this is just with my ears. Your mileage may vary, but in my opinion, these do feel much more secure despite looking nearly identical to the previous models. Now, even though these new ear tips are pretty great in my opinion, the unfortunate thing about them is that they are not backwards compatible. So you can't just buy these new ear tips and pop them on your AirPods Pro or Pro 2s because it's actually a tighter seal on the AirPod itself. Okay, next up, let's talk sound quality with the AirPod Pro 3s. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm not really an audiophile. I do listen to a lot of podcasts like rock music, some electronic music, and I can say for certain, in my opinion, that they do sound better compared to the AirPod Pro 2s. The main difference I'm noticing with these when it comes to audio quality is there's more bass, but not only that, the sound stage or how separated the audio sounds, like it's more immersive. It kind of feels like you're in the room with the music rather than little speakers being in your ears. So in my opinion, it does seem like a pretty notable upgrade in terms of audio quality with these earbuds. And I've done side-by-side comparisons with the Pro 2s versus the Pro 3s with the same song. I definitely notice it. Another upgrade to the AirPod Pro 3s is the active noise cancellation, or ANC. Now, historically, the AirPods have always had really good ANC. The AirPod Pro 2s were some of the best I've ever tried in terms of ANC, and it kind of feels like you're going into a black void when you turn that on. With the AirPod Pro 3s, Apple claims that they are 2 times more effective than the Pro 2s. I don't know if I can quantify that or say that's accurate, but what I can say is it's probably the best ANC I've ever tried from any earbud that's not a over-ear headphone. These are really impressive. I really got to put this ANC to the test on my flight home from Cupertino. I was on a 6-hour flight from California to Boston, and that entire time I wore these earbuds. I had them in ANC mode, and I was able to get some sleep on that flight as well. But the ANC on these earbuds is really good at eliminating sounds like that airplane sort of droning noise, or if you're in like a ambiently loud restaurant or something like that, they're really good at eliminating that. And on the flip side, when it comes to transparency mode, they're also really good with that as well. In fact, right now I have transparency mode on. I can hear my own voice very clearly. It's really not hard to talk, unlike a lot of earbuds out there. And I can have a full-on conversation with transparency turned on. So that's the sound quality ANC transparency mode. I'm gonna go through those pretty quickly. Again, I'm not an audiophile. They sound really good. But let's move on to some of the unique features of these earbuds. And first up, I want to talk about live translation. What this does is essentially if you hold the stems of both earbuds simultaneously, you'll see it on my phone. You can see there that this just popped up. So this says live translation, use your AirPods to listen to and communicate naturally with someone who speaks another language. Down below here, you can see their language and your language. And here you can dial in what language you want to translate. What's really cool about this is all these languages can be downloaded to your device directly. So you could be offline, you don't need Wi-Fi or cellular for this to work. Now here's what happens when you enable live translation mode. Essentially, the AirPods go into ANC mode and they cut down the noise around you. This is by intention because it wants to sort of block out the person that's talking to you so you can hear the translation in your ears. And from there, it will use Apple Intelligence and the downloaded language pack to translate what they're saying in real time into your earbuds. So if I hit start translation here, you're gonna see my screen will change. It just went into ANC mode and it said translating Portuguese in my ears. And now as I talk, you can see it's translating everything I say into Portuguese. So if I was talking to somebody in front of me, I'd be able to show my phone to them, or I can simply hit the play button and it will translate what I'm saying to them so we can have a two-way conversation. Now back at home, my wife's friend also speaks Portuguese. So she actually came over and we were able to demo this in real time and have a two-way conversation. Paloma, how's it going today?
Going well, tô indo bem. E você?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm doing well, a little tired. I've been traveling this week. What were you guys up to today?
Estávamos no jogo da minha filha. Teve jogo de futebol. Infelizmente não ganharam, mas foi bom jogo.
In my daughter's game, there was a soccer game. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but it was a good game.
Oh, that's good. Well, was she upset about it or was she okay with the loss?
Não, ela não se importou. Para minha filha, qualquer jogo bom jogo.
So she didn't care for my daughter. Any game is a good game.
There are some downsides to live translation. For example, there's a pretty significant delay from the time they talk to when you hear it in your earbuds. So it does make the conversation a little bit choppy. It's not a big deal, and I get why that has to happen for the processing in the background. And the other issue I've run into so far is when we had all of our kids around, a combined 7 children in the room, you can imagine it's pretty loud. It also had a hard time locking in to the person speaking a different language to translate it. With all that being said, this is super cool technology, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. I can think of a lot of situations where I will be able to use this, where there is that language barrier, and we'll be able to have a conversation, which is amazing. And the really cool thing about live translation is that it's not unique to the AirPod Pro 3s here. In fact, they're going to roll this back to the older AirPods as well, including the AirPods 4 and AirPod Pro 2s via a firmware update. So you should be seeing that pretty soon if you already own a pair of AirPods. There is one stipulation on that. You do have to have an iPhone with Apple Intelligence for it to work, even if you have the AirPods. So just keep that in mind. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the new heart rate sensors in the AirPod Pro 3s, because this is a feature I did not see coming. Now, Apple isn't the first to do this by adding a heart rate sensor to their earbuds. The Powerbeat Pro 2s have this, the Sennheiser Momentums have this, but Apple is doing it a different way. Obviously, it's Apple. So if we flip over the AirPod here, you're gonna see that little black lens on the bottom here, and to my understanding, that's where the heart rate sensor is located. Now, what's different about their heart rate sensor compared to a lot of other optical heart rate sensors out there is that this is using infrared light. So it doesn't emit any light when you're actually using it, unlike your watch, for example. If you lift up your Apple Watch, you'll see that green glow underneath. So on the AirPod Pro 3s, when you're using them with the heart rate feature, you see no blinking light in your ear. And what's even more interesting about this is that Apple says if you wear both AirPod Pro 3s and you wear an Apple Watch at the same time, that it will combine the sources. So you actually have 3 sources of data for your heart rate. So as you can see here, I loaded up the Apple Fitness app, and down the bottom here, there's a new selection for workout. Now, if I tap in on that, we get this new screen. With just my AirPods now, I can record up to 50 different workouts by just using my phone in the AirPods to complete a full activity. So I can do things like indoor run, outdoor walk, cycling, indoor walking, all kinds of different stuff from here. But what's even cooler than that is that I get access to some unique Apple Watch features that rolled out in a recent update, like Workout Buddy. If you paid attention to Apple Watch, Workout Buddy is a little motivational speaker that chimes in your earbuds to let you know how you're doing on your next run. So you can enable this. And now with just my phone in the AirPod Pro 3s, I get access to Workout Buddy, and after every mile, it'll chime in and let me know how that mile went. And you can also dive into this little music icon here, and you can autoplay media from Apple Music. From within Apple Fitness, I can also choose targets for my workouts. For example, if I want to do a timed workout, or I want to do a known distance, or calories burned. And if I have a paired Apple Watch as well, I can do custom workouts. You can see these require an Apple Watch. There's a little watch icon next to them. Jumping back to the workout page here, up in the top right corner, you can see this little dialog box for heart rate. So you can see connected devices, Dave's AirPod Pros, those are going to be utilized as my heart rate. However, if I unlock my watch here, you're going to see that another device will pop up there as well, and that'll be my Apple Watch. So here it's showing that it's going to use both sources to come up with the most accurate heart rate possible. So now I can simply go out for my run. I've got my AirPods as the heart rate sensor. If I click start on outdoor run, it's going to do the typical countdown timer that you'd see on an Apple Watch, but on your phone. And now we're off. And I just heard the Workout Buddy give me a little pep talk in my AirPods here. But now you can see I've got all the data I need for my run. I've got my distance, my average pace, my heart rate, my active calories, my total calories burned. Okay, now that we talked about the Apple Fitness app, let's talk about a little bit of the quirkiness to the AirPod Pro 3s and the heart rate sensors. So if you own heart rate sensors like a chest strap or an arm strap or any, like I'm wearing one now, a lot of these can broadcast a Bluetooth signal to nearby devices. That could be a Garmin watch, it could be your treadmill, it could be a stair stepper, whatever. Unfortunately, the AirPod Pro 3s cannot do that. So these are using a very special API that Apple built that works with Apple Fitness and some third-party apps. To my understanding, this API is available to software developers and app developers. So third-party apps theoretically should be able to enable this in their specific apps. And there are a handful of apps at launch that do support this, like Runna, Nike Run Club, Open, Peloton, and Ladder. Unfortunately, the super popular Strava app does not support it yet. Hopefully sometime soon. Okay, now that we've talked about how the heart rate sensors work, how accurate are they? The answer to that question is surprisingly good. I've taken the AirPod Pro 3s on a few different runs, both on the road and on the treadmill, and during those runs I also wore a chest-based ECG sensor. And looking at the data, I'm actually pretty surprised by just how accurate the heart rate sensors on the AirPod Pro 3s are. You can see that the trend lines are nearly identical and that the AirPod Pro 3s are within like 1 or 2 beats per minute compared to the ECG sensor. This is looking really good. I would say surprisingly good for earbuds that also have heart rate sensors. Another interesting thing I noticed while wearing the AirPod Pro 3s and no Apple Watch or anything like that is that not only do they collect heart rate data, but they also collect cadence and distance data if you're on a treadmill or if you're running outdoors. And what's surprising about this is that even with an indoor run on the treadmill, the distance data recorded was within like 0.2 of a mile compared to my Garmin that was paired to my treadmill that had perfectly accurate distance data. Again, this is very early testing. I'll need to do a lot more testing. I've only had these things for a few days, but the data coming out of the AirPod Pro 3s is looking pretty good right now. Okay, we've reached the end of this video where I want to talk final thoughts and conclusions after using the AirPod Pro 3s for the past few days. I like them quite a bit. I think the AirPod Pro 3s actually do represent a pretty significant upgrade compared to the Pro 2s, even though they look pretty much the same on the surface. Not only do you get better battery life, better sound quality, ANC and transparency mode, you also get that unique ability to track your heart rate, and I actually do think that heart rate sensing feature could be pretty useful for a large audience out there. For example, if you're someone who just buys AirPods because you need headphones, and then later decide you want to start working out and getting in shape, and then you look at the price of Apple Watches and you think, I don't really want to invest that much money. Well, you could get going just with your AirPods and your phone without needing to invest in other things. So let's get down to brass tacks. Are the AirPod Pro 3s worth the upgrade? Well, that depends. The AirPod Pro 2s are still really great. I've used these every day for the past year. I use them in bed to listen to podcasts. I've used them on airplanes. I go for runs with them. They're great earbuds. The AirPod Pro 3s are better in just about every way, and they're the same price. So if you're looking to upgrade and you really want some of these features like the heart rate sensing or slightly better ANC and transparency mode and a little bit better audio quality, then yes, I do think it's worth the upgrade. However, I don't think you're taking a giant leap from the AirPod Pro 2s. Where you will see a giant leap is when you go from something like the AirPods non-Pro. That's where these will represent a pretty big leap in audio quality and all the other features. And jumping back to the price point at $249, the price has not changed. So if you were in the market and you were planning to buy the AirPod Pro 2s, this is a no-brainer. Just go for the Pro 3s because it's the same price and they're better in every way. So yeah. I think that's the end of this video. If you found this video fun, helpful, educational, anything, I would really appreciate it if you drop down, gave me a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos like this in the very near future. And after you do that, as always, check out the description down below where you can head over to Amazon, grab your AirPod Pro 3s, and help support this channel as well because that is an affiliate link that costs nothing extra to you. You might as well use it. After you go shopping, also check out ChaseTheSummit.com where you can buy a sweet hat like that. Check that out, Chase the Summit. All right, friends, I gotta go now. I'm very tired. It's a grind season. There's a lot more coming. Stay tuned, and I will see you very soon. Bye.